Hey guys, I'm going to update you on the progress of the aluminum 5.3 swap Porsche. So the last video I kind of showed you guys getting the motor in, getting it fired up. We've gone to the track, we've gone to the dyno in that order, and let me get you kind of caught up on what's happening. So after I shot the video of the swap actually going in, the next day we took it to the track and I had it on wastegate, which with this setup happens to make around 17 pounds of boost, and I pulled the timing down to about 13 degrees. 13 and a half I think it actually ended up doing. And went to the track, not expecting a whole lot out of it. I did notice that if I tried to go past wastegate on boost, it would go lean, and even if I opened the injector duty cycle all the way up to 100, it would just stay lean. So that told me that the fuel system was not keeping up. So I went ahead and swapped in a Holley billet pump instead of Bosch 044, and that didn't help drastically because I ended up using the smaller of the twin Holleys. They have three versions. One's like the race only, and then there's two street versions, a 1200 and a 1600 model. I put the 1200 model in, and that was only slightly better than the Bosch 044. So, and this was running with the stock Porsche feed and return, which is 3/8 and 5/16 I think. So I ended up calling up and exchanging and having them send me the new 1600 Holley billet, and I returned the 1200, but I didn't get it in time for the track. So at the track I was running on the Holley 1200, and I had to keep the boost around 17 pounds because it would go lean, and it did well. Don't mind my messy garage. I have not cleaned up since the last project I had in here. But check this out. So here's a pass with that setup. I spun pretty bad. This is actually about 2/10 off what it should be. But look at this mile an hour. I did 149.8 and 121.7. So basically almost 122 and almost 150 on those low settings. Here's a pass I did right after that where I didn't spin. You see it got down to 139 60 foot, 598 at 120, 121, and then I did a 924 at 148. So spinning usually doesn't make the mile an hour go up a little bit because it doesn't bog. So this was on the wastegate in 13 degrees timing. It's kind of neat. I actually have the best slip from every iteration of the car from back when it was the stock 5.3 and the 76 millimeter. There's a 10.0, and then we dropped to the 9.58. I'm sorry, 9.6 and 9.5, and somewhere in there's another one. What is this? And that's one from the other Friday where I was running 9.2s. Okay, so I ended up going to the dyno then yesterday with the better fuel pump on, the Holley 1600, and we were able to get the boost up to 21 pounds, and when we tried to go to 22 pounds, it went lean. Part of the reason why I'm not really going to give you any dyno video in this segment is because the dyno we use, as you saw in all my videos lately, is a Mustang dyno. It's horrible for giving out accurate horsepower numbers. This car hates that dyno, and that dyno hates this car. This car spins on it, and because the way the exhaust comes out right here, the wall is like right over here. The exhaust hits the wall, comes around, gets sucked back in by the turbo. We end up having to stick fans here and everything to try to keep it from happening, but it still ends up ingesting air that's contaminated with carbon monoxide and burnt exhaust. So power numbers are always horrible with this car on that dyno. So basically we just got it set pretty close, got it tuned up to about 21 pounds or so, and we went out on the street. Well, as soon as we hit the street, the car went instant lean. There was no exhaust being contaminated in, it was fresh flowing air, and we ended up having to crank the injector duty cycle was 85% on the dyno. We cranked it to 100% on the street, and we were still well into the 12s on air fuel ratios at 22 pounds. So it just was not supplying enough fuel. So we basically called it quits. I brought the car home, and I've upgraded the fuel system now. This used to be the feed before. I've made this now the return, and I put a new 1/2-inch feed in with a free-flowing fuel filter. This did have like the stock Porsche style filter in it, which when I try to blow through, it's pretty restrictive. So that's part of the problem there with one of those like that. So with the 1/2-inch feed and the 3/8 return, I took her out on the street today, and happy to say that air fuels dipped right into the 10s. With that same settings, I was able to dial the settings back to about a 95-96% injector duty cycle and still maintain a mid-11 to high-11 air fuel ratio at 22 pounds. Timing's also moved up from the 13.5 to 15, almost 15.5 in higher RPMs. So power should be up substantially from when it ran the 149 mile an hour and was doing the 9.2s. Unfortunately, the track is closed till next week, so it'll be almost a 2-week wait till we can get some numbers out of her. But she's doing really well. I don't usually like to guess and estimate because you always set yourself up for failure. But judging by the amount of fuel we've had to add, the fact we've added some timing, and the fact that we've have moved the boost from 17 to 22, I mean that's 4 pounds. Even if we only make a measly 10 to 12 horsepower per pound, which usually, as you guys should know, it's somewhere in the order of usually 15 to 20. Even if it's only 10, that's 40 horse, and the degree of timing, I know we saw proved on the dyno, it jumped up almost 30, so there's 70. So we're a minimal amount of 70 horsepower more than we were when we went the 149 mile an hour and 9.2s. I have a feeling it's actually substantially more than that, because the other issue I was having when I was making these passes here was I had these 8s here in it with a pretty big gap, and when I would get close to the finish line on all those passes, the car started to break up. It started to miss. So with it missing, that was holding me back a little bit too. So I have a feeling the car is probably in the neighborhood of around 100 horsepower more now than it was. I stuck 7s in it, and the 7s are gapped down nice and tight at 20 thousandths. So I'll show you guys the dyno video, and I'll show you guys some passes from when it did the 924, just to get you caught up to date. And then next Friday we'll go to the track and we'll see if this thing can't run some low 9s, high 8s, and trap well in the 150s. Alright guys, enjoy the update here.